I'm planning to retire next year at age 62. I think I need about $7,000 for living expenses after taxes. Currently got around $500,000 in a TSP account, and I want to take a look at our retirement income plan to see if we're okay. I think we are based on our guaranteed income sources, but I want to take a look at it. And I also want to see what the possibilities might be with smart management. I'm also considering exploring Roth conversions to see if those make sense. And is there anything that we're just not thinking about? Hey guys, in today's video, we're going to explore that situation, which was the setup for one of our newer client families. We're going to walk through this plan really from top to bottom. I want to build a personal retirement income worksheet here. We're going to talk through that Roth conversion question to see if it makes sense. We're going to look at some asset projections to see just what things do look like in the future. And then of course, we're going to touch on some advanced planning concepts that we're finding a lot of federal employees are overlooking at the moment. So a lot of great value in here. Stay with me throughout the video. Guys, I'm Justin, been building financial plans, retirement income plans for federal employees for a long time, more than 20 years, part of a federal family myself. If you have questions like this, you're working on something, please reach out. I'd love to be a resource for you. Back to our video here today. So I'll give you a little setup on this, right? I've got Harry and Margo. Harry's 61 years old. Margo is 58. Harry is a federal employee. Margo's retired military. She's working in an admin role for a small business locally. And Harry put off retiring from age 60, which is what he originally planned, to 62, which is next year. It's coming up pretty quick, in an effort to really pad his retirement income picture and build some additional stability, flexibility, security, if you will. And I think it's paid off, but I want to take a look at this here. Age 60 with 20 years would have been Harry's first opportunity to go out with immediate benefits, where he could have locked in FEHB. He could have received 2 years of the special retirement supplement, start receiving that FERS pension right away as well. Okay, so it could have been a good setup for him. But by delaying, he's been able to pad the FERS pension, get the additional 2 years of service, and his high three has increased significantly based on the cost of living adjustments over the past few years. So we're going to take a look at just how much that pension increased when we build the retirement income worksheet. But I want to give you a little bit more of the setup. So admittedly, Harry and Margo hadn't quite taken, I think they did take things seriously, but maybe they didn't prioritize their retirement quite as much as they would have liked in the past. They had some other competing priorities, including putting their son through college, having him come out without any education expenses, and paying off their mortgage. Okay, so that was really a big priority, was to get to retirement or close to retirement without a mortgage. Okay, so opportunity costs involved, they realized that, but at this point in time, they wouldn't trade it. They wouldn't change what they did to this point because those were such important items for them. Of course, that mortgage being paid off translates into a lower monthly expense footprint for them, which is a good thing. And there's no feeling like helping your kids, right? So good things from that standpoint. But over the years, saving and investing had been a bit of a challenge. And so they find themselves today with about $500,000 in the TSP account. Okay, and let's take a quick look. So the income statement looks like this. Between the two salaries, Harry's on the GS pay scale. He's a GS 14. Margo, like I said, is working for a small business. About $225,000 coming in right now in annual gross income before taxes. Their balance sheet looks like this. They've got about $30,000 in savings, got $500,000 in Harry's TSP, which is all pre-tax. And they've got about $47,000 in an IRA for Margo. In addition to that, they have their house, which we mentioned is paid for. It's worth about $450,000. So collectively, their net worth is more than $1 million. Big chunk of that is in home equity that's not going to be able to produce income unless they decide to move and, make some changes there that would allow them to free up some of that equity to produce income. So if we take a look at this retirement income worksheet and just kind of dig right into it, I mentioned monthly expense about $7,000, be about $84,000 on an annualized basis. And that's post-tax what they're looking for. This allows them to do all the things that they want to do and give them a little flexibility. Now, maybe they want to build in additional vacation money if the numbers look good, but you might be thinking, well, they only have $550,000 in retirement accounts. How are we going to get to the point where we can match $7,000? We need to take a look at these guaranteed income sources because they set up really favorable in Harry and Margo's situation. Let's take a look at Harry's FERS pension. Now, I mentioned 62, he's coming up on, he's going to get the 1.1% multiplier. Harry will have 23 years of service at that point. Okay, so he could have went out at 60 with 20, and like I said, locked in FEHB, locked in special retirement supplement for 2 years, and taken that immediate annuity. If he had done that based on his high three at that time, which was a bit lower, that max pension would have been around $25,000, and that's before survivor benefit, that's before any other reductions. So fast forward here, with increases, with the pay raises that have happened over the last few years, his high three has risen significantly. Plus now we have the 1.1% multiplier in the equation. So if we look at that age 62 projected pension, now we're bumping up to about $35,000 a year. Okay, so $10,000 right around that mark. Of course, we could run the numbers to see what that equals on a, if you're taking money from a portfolio or if you're buying an annuity. Either way, that's a significant difference. So the numbers actually swing. If you're looking at a $10,000 increase over that $25,000 pension to get all the way up to 35, that's a 40% increase. Now we're going to take the survivor benefit off of that. So the pension is going to come down to about $32,000 a year. Okay. Of course, there's other reductions to consider like FEHB and taxes, but we're going to build those into the plan in a different place. Specifically, we're going to take taxes off on our own. And we've had Harryy and Margo include FEHB costs, everything rolled up into that $7,000 a month. Okay. So let's put that on our retirement income worksheet. Harry's pension, $32,000 a year starting at age 62. Okay, now we're going to tax that, of course, but that's our number pre-tax. Now, Margo also has a military pension worth about $29,500 a year from her military service when she retired. Margo's also eligible for VA disability, and that benefit is around $18,000 a year, which is actually tax-free. So it's a pretty big benefit there. Now, if we take a look at the Social Security benefits, Harry's coming in around $24,200 a year at age 62, and Margo's coming in at $19,200 a year. Now, of course, Margo has a gap here being 58 years old, so there's a 4-year gap before she can touch Social Security. She is planning to continue working. We're not even accounting for that in this plan. We're considering her actually retiring at the same age here, 62, as Harryy, just to see what the plan looks like. Because the plan looks even better if she continues working, obviously offsetting some of these expenses with her income. We'll also get into the discussion on whether or not taking Social Security at 62 is the right move versus drawing down the portfolio for a period of gap years until, some different things fall in place. Of course, when looking at those Social Security decisions, we know there's about a 30% move between 62 and full retirement age if you delay those benefits. Then of course it goes even further if you delay all the way from 67 up to age 70. There's additional credits. Really, you're kind of rolling up your own benefits in there in combination. So let's add this all up. So what do we got here? We got the FERS pension, military pension, VA disability, and we've got Harry's Social Security that he's going to decide to take at age 62. Okay. Whether or not we do, let's look at it in the context of this example. So if I add all that up, it gives me $103,700 coming in at age 62. Okay. If I tax that at 20%, which is kind of what I'm estimating, I think their effective tax rate federally is somewhere around 14 to 15%. They're going to have about a 5% state tax rate, maybe some local nuisance taxes to work on, but this gives us a pretty close number here. So it brings our total down to $82,960. So we said our post-tax amount that we were looking for was $84,000. So based on these guaranteed income sources, Harryy and Margo are right on, right? So there's about $1,000 difference, which that would be nothing to pull from retirement accounts. And of course, if Margo continues to work for a period of years, there's going to be a surplus where we can actually save money over the next few years until she decides to retire officially. Okay, so all good things. And even if we took that $24,000 off the table from Social Security and we had to pull that from the retirement portfolio, we're still under a 5% distribution rate. So that could be doable for a period of years to allow the Social Security benefits to continue to grow. But that's really the trade-off that you want to think about balancing is, do you want to put the stress on your retirement portfolio to allow your Social Security benefits to grow? Or do you want to lock in that guaranteed income source and allow your portfolio to grow, thereby taking some of that volatility sequence returns risk off the table? All right, so as things look, Harryy was right. His guaranteed income sources are pretty stable and they're going to be in a good position to retire if this remains their expense footprint around $7,000 a month. Okay. So let's look at his next question. So what are some of the possibilities with smart management? And he was really talking about Roth conversions because he was worried about the RMD tax bomb where, this tax deferred account would grow and push him into a higher tax bracket. Our preliminary planning work shows that's not really going to be the case. If I project this out, just to give you some rough numbers here that you can look at, they've got about $550,000 in retirement accounts. If you take that, you earn 8% a year on it, and we run that out 15 years, so they're in their mid-70s, RMD age would start, you'd be talking about a $1.74 million balance in tax-deferred accounts, without touching anything. Even with that continued growth beyond those 15 years, I do not show them getting out of the 22% tax bracket until they would pass age 90, and then they would bump into the 24% tax bracket. Now, of course, that's considering tax brackets stay where they are today, and we're indexing them for inflation. That's why, the numbers don't actually grow to be big enough to push you into a higher bracket. So I think we can safely take that off the table if they're in the, 22% tax bracket, worst case scenario. It's going to be hard to beat that even with a Roth conversion strategy. Maybe they're in the 12% bracket and there's a little bit of room there. we'd have to take a closer look at it, but I don't think it's as big of a concern or a planning item to prioritize as maybe Harry originally thought. One other concern here. So they came in, and this was actually the opposite situation when it comes to the investment management strategy. So in combination of maybe not contributing as much as they would have liked over the years, they've also been very conservative with their investment choices. One other thing I want to take a look at here before we move on. So we're talking about the TSP and retirement accounts growing. What can happen with good, smart management here and making good decisions? Admittedly, they've been maybe not prioritizing long-term saving for retirement accounts as much as they would have liked. And in combination with that, they've been really conservative over the years, right? Making changes based on emotional swings, right? So if things don't feel great, we're going to move to the G fund. And that's when they reached out, that's where I found them actually 100% in the G fund. So you're really limiting yourself from that standpoint in two ways. Of course, the G fund is a great secure location for your funds, but if you have growth goals, it's not going to help you meet those. Okay. And then the second thing is if you're making decisions based on emotion, that's really how you underperform over the long term. Trying to time the market's really, really difficult, if not impossible. Taking really a goal-based strategy that's long-term, that's disciplined, that's really kind of how they should think about approaching managing these investments going forward to make these assets last, to make them grow, to give them more flexibility in the future. All right, so that's the retirement income worksheet. That's Roth conversions. That's kind of looking at the investment strategy a little bit, how they want to set up going forward. They're going to need to work through that, find something that's suitable for them, considering their risk tolerance, their time horizon, all those different things, and their needs for income, of course. So some other things I mentioned that we're finding that really being overlooked quite often and a lot of the federal employees we're talking to, insurance and estate planning. Harry and Margo don't have a strong need for insurance. They have one child, their son is grown, he's working on his own, started his own life. They don't have a mortgage. They have guaranteed income sources with survivor benefit protection that we're going to discuss. So income replacement is less of a priority. They've got some assets to fall back on. So there's not a strong need for insurance. So when Harry's, if he decides to discontinue FEGLI at retirement, which I think he's going to take a look at anyway, they don't have a strong need to replace that insurance outside of maybe thinking through long-term care planning. And that is an important consideration. It's a bit of a complicated question, of course. Before getting into any sort of insurance product that's oriented towards long-term care, you want to consider what your guaranteed income sources, what role they're going to play in being able to pay for that care, right? And then in combination with what assets you have, then you can kind of work through solving that equation. So in this particular situation, they don't have a strong need for life insurance, but they might consider some sort of solution to patch a little bit of that need for long-term care planning. But then the other thing is estate planning. So they don't have any documents in place. They do have beneficiaries named on the retirement accounts, which is a good thing. But beyond that, there are no documents in place. Now, of course, spouses being involved, if just one spouse passes away, you have the beneficiary named, things can go relatively smoothly, I guess. But I think having just basic documents is something that they're going to need to take a look at as soon as possible, and then consider any advanced planning concepts. Does a trust make sense in this circumstance? So knocking out the will, power of attorney, health directives, and then maybe considering things like a trust document. Those are all good concepts to be talking through to see what makes sense in the situation. Okay. So as always, I'll give you the disclaimer here. This is not specific advice. This is just general information. Hopefully what we're talking about in this case study here today helps you think through your own situation and helps you put together a plan. But of course, always find that advice that is specific to your needs. I know there's more to talk about in Harry and Margo's situation. We're getting a little extended here. So we're going to wrap it up there. If you found some value here, we'd love if you give us a like and a subscribe. And if you have questions, please reach out, use this as a resource. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time.